Patty and Lucy, y'all should have your videos on. There we go. Okay, and then let me share my screen. There we go. Okay, now we're on the right thing. But I think, okay, I think we're ready, Emily. It's not going to be perfect. It's going to be okay.
Okay, I just broadcasted.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the League of Women Voters of Arlington Heights, Mount Prospect, Buffalo Grove program about running for local office. We want to help you get ready to run. My name is Lucy Nisi, the Emerging Leader Board member. I'm a sophomore at Prospect High School, and I'm really excited to be here today. I'm also a member of the Arlington Heights Environmental Commission, so I'm very excited about community engagement in local government. I hope today's presentation encourages you to get involved and run for local government. I'd like to start with a special thank you to Patty Shore-Caden for providing us with sign language interpretation. If you want to pin her video, then you can see it as we continue to move forward in the slides. Now I'm going to pass the mic off to Maya Kusalovic, who will be introducing our panelists for the day. Take it away, Maya.
Hi there, I'm Maya Kusalovic, and I am going to be the moderator for this morning. And I'd just like to introduce the panelists. We have Mary Beth Canty, the current VAH board trustee. We have Joanne Brody-Garkish, former Arlington Heights Memorial Library trustee. We have Charles Chuck McLaughlin, recent Arlington Heights Park Board candidate. We have Laura Sayoika, Rolling Meadows 7th Ward Alderman. We have Becky Hume, VAH Village Clerk. Ted Mason, Democratic Committee Person, and Stephanie Reinsman, Center-Right Party Campaigns. All right, and now back to Lucy.
Okay. Contested elections are the cornerstone of our democracy, yet many of our local offices are uncontested. We know that most elected officials must be asked to run for office, and women in particular are need to be asked about 7 times. So today we are asking you to run for office. This program will feature people just like you who have run for office or have worked on campaigns to illuminate the process and convince you the time to serve your community is now. All of our communities have open offices at almost every single level: village board, the city council, school board, park board, library board, and township. Today we will show you how to take your seat at the table or learn how you can help your neighbor take the leap into local governance. Please note that all the information presented in today's presentation should not be taken as legal advice, and we recommend you consult with the Cook County Clerk's Office. We're going to put the link in the chat for that. Next slide, please. Okay. Though running for public office can seem daunting, there are various resources that can assist potential candidates, which range from basic checklists to organizations that want to support emerging leaders. Hopefully, some general questions you may have will be answered throughout this presentation. Once again, I do want to emphasize the information presented should not be considered a legal opinion or the final answer to questions you may have. Okay. Here, sorry. So we're running through the lists, I think, on the screen of different positions that are open. Right now we're looking at the available positions on townships. Okay, I'm going to move to that slide. I'm going to turn over turn this over to the panelists to give an overview of what to consider and how to decide what office is best for you. Next slide will introduce the panelists. And Maya, if you want to take that again with the introductions.
All right, can we please have panelist Canty talk about why they ran for office?
Hi there, Maya. Hi, Lucy. Nice to see you guys. Thank you for having me. As Heidi mentioned, I am currently on the Village Heights board here in Arlington Heights. I was elected last year, so I just finished up my first year of a 4-year term. And one of the reasons that I ran is because I believe very much in the role of government. And I also believe very much that local government is what impacts you on almost a day-to-day basis, right? So national politics are very sexy, state politics are very sexy, local politics are actually a little bit sexy, but people forget about them. And so I felt like it was really important for me to be involved in that way and shape the community that I live in into a community that I can continue to be proud of and that my kids could be proud of, and make sure that we're getting all kinds of different points of view on the board. I felt like, you know, all of the board members that serve at the local level, you know, they're very passionate about their communities. They love where they live. But I didn't feel like I was represented on that board because there weren't a lot of women and there weren't any people of color. And as a woman and a person of color myself, I felt like it was really important for me to speak for these communities and put myself out there in that way.
Thank you, panelist Canty. Next, can we have panelist Garkish? Panelist Garkish, I think we're having a few problems with audio.
Oh, how's that better?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, sorry, start again. Thank you. So I ran for office similar to what Mary Beth said, looking at local government. I was a library trustee. Library trustee is a 6-year term. I did 1 term. I loved it. We'll talk more about, I'm sure, you know, what the different positions are and the pluses and minuses of running for different positions during this presentation. But I ran because I went to school for public policy, and I was very interested during my education in people who ran for office. And honestly, I never really thought that I was going to run for office, but it was always in the back of my mind. And then someone who was on the library board said, you know, we're going to have an opening, you should consider it. And so I wanted to do it, and I'm glad I did it because my background, I do a lot of work with communities. I'm a grant writer, and I work with a lot of government entities and nonprofits. And I found that I could bring that experience and add value directly as a library board trustee. That's on a professional level. On a personal level, if you're considering running for office, you know, you do a lot for your family personally. That's how I felt. You know, you're engaged with your family. You do a lot professionally to run your business. But this was something completely different, and this was something that I could do for myself as well as contribute to the community. So if you're someone who really wants to not only contribute and participate, but have something that really you could focus on, I think it's a great opportunity, especially at the local level.
All right, thank you, panelist Garkish. Next, could we have panelist McLaughlin?
Thank you. Hello, everybody. Probably the biggest reason I decided to run was I wanted to give back to the community. I've been involved in the communities, lived here all my life. My kids are now part of the park district. I wanted to continue to give back. I was asked to run. I was a previous president of a subcommittee of the park district, the Soccer Advisory Board, and I was there for a couple of years. I decided I wanted to give more of my time help out. Things are going well, but things could always be improved upon. New blood in the park district. I figure new topics, new exciting interests or ideas I could bring to the board. I learned a lot. I don't regret going back and understanding the whole political process. I knew nothing about politics, about how to even begin to run. So I learned a whole lot. Um, in the future, I could consider going back and running again. Right now may not be the best time, but in the future, I've learned a lot of what I can do and how quickly to make it happen. So
All right, thank you. Next, could we have panelist San Oika? Also, my apologies for the mispronunciation of your name earlier.
No worries at all. So yeah, my name is Lara Samaika, and I'm the 7th Ward Alderman of the City of Rolling Meadows. I ran without a political science degree or any previous experience in local government. Instead, I was at a farmer's market, and the Rolling Meadows Environmental Committee had a booth there, and they told me how I could get involved in initiatives like sustainable land use, flood abatement, energy efficient transportation initiatives, and improving air and water quality, all things up my alley, all things that I cared about personally. So I got involved in the group, and I quickly realized that the city council's decision making was really incongruent with the recommendations and the direction of that committee, and not aligned with the vision that I had for my hometown of Rolling Meadows. So I realized that for these big ideas to get off the ground, get on the budget, we needed a vote, we needed a seat on the council. So I ran against an incumbent. I had no experience, but since I ran on issues, I found a lot of people who came to help because they believed in those issues too. They had flooded basements, they had issues that they felt were left on the back burner for literally decades that had just been frozen. And so they were energized by that campaign when I was able to go door to door in the before times. There was record turnout in the 2019 consolidated election. And so, you know, I really do think that running on issues you generally care about is the cornerstone for running for office. And we're going to talk today about a lot of detail, but that's the main thing. Everything else is secondary. Everything else will fall into place. You do not get into local politics for the money. So the issues are also what will keep you going after the election too. It's about getting stuff done, and that is one of the best feelings in the world. Thanks.
All right, thank you. Now we will have the second half of the second half of speakers outline their role in the election process. So first, could we have panelist Hume?
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for having me. My role is as the village clerk to assist people running for office. I'm a liaison for the Cook County Election Official Office and the State Board of Elections. So my job is really to help the process along. I'm an employee of the Village of Arlington Heights, so my background was in journalism and senior services. So I come to this position with a mission or an internal mission of being providing transparency in government and trying to assist people in the process the best I can, encourage more people. And that means being available, providing information when possible, and helping direct people to the right resources.
All right, thank you. Next, could we have panelist Mason?
Yeah, good morning. Thank you for having me. I'm Ted Mason. I'm the Democratic Committee Person for Elk Grove Township, which represents portions of Elk Grove Village, Des Plaines, Arlington Heights, Rolling Meadows, and Mount Prospect. So my role is to basically try to help as many Democrats as possible within that area. But I am here. I'm happy to be here to talk to all of you and encourage everyone to run for these positions. They're nonpartisan positions, but similar to what Trustee Canty already said, they have real impact on people's lives, from, you know, what day your garbage gets picked up to the hours of the library to just the very real things that people go through day to day. So I'm happy to be here and help answer as many questions as I can. And yeah, thank you.
Thank you. And now we will have panelist Reinsman.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for having me, and thanks for putting this together. It's inspiring to see so many people who decided to step up and run for office. What my role is in the political process, so I work for Core Consulting, Core Strategies. So what we do is help folks once they make that decision to run for office. We help guide you every step of the way. It can be a very daunting and intimidating process. There's a lot of different details that go into it. And once you've identified the issues that you're passionate about and want to run on, we help you, get from drafting your petitions, figuring out that process, building up your grassroots team so you can take your message to the voters, building out your initial budget and your strategy. And we help you move from basically point A to point Z in the election. So it's been a really exciting practice to help folks in our community step up, run for office, and hold their hands and help guide them. It can be a difficult process on the candidate and the families, and so I'm here just to help you and help guide you for every step of that process. So it's exciting to be here. I'm excited to answer any questions, and thanks again for having this important discussion. I appreciate it.
All right, thank you. Now we're going to hand it back to Lucy, and she's going to give us a presentation.
Thank you so much. Yes, we are going to do a quick presentation about getting ready to run. So if you have questions for the panelists, and please think of some questions, they're really here to help if you have any interest in running. We're going to save that for the end, so we're just going to go through this really fast. So starting with do your research, as we discussed on earlier slides, making the decision to run, it's a personal decision and it reflects your interest in local government, and it reflects that you have a passion for your local community, and that you really care about your life and your community and your neighbor's life. You also, making that decision, you could connect to positions that you have in relation to the position that you're running for. So when you decide that you want to run for government, if you want to run, you have to do your research, do your homework, as one would say. You wouldn't accept a job without a job description. So part of this is being sure to know what will be involved when you're elected. A good way to start that is to attend the website and meetings of the governmental unit. Just learn more about how they operate, and talk to current board members. Next slide, please. Thanks. Now what? So you'd want to be familiar with the State Board of Elections and the Candidates Guide. All the information we're talking about today can be found on the Illinois Board of Elections website under candidate information. You can put that in the chat later on. You can download the guide from the Illinois State Board of Elections. That's something you can refer to often, and don't be afraid to talk to others who have run to answer specific questions. Just to say this one more time, all the information that we had above about specific local positions that are open and spots that are open that you can run for, that's going to be available on the league's website as posted in the chat, which is LWV-AH-MP-BG, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, so on election materials packets, we were hoping that Mrs. Hume could speak to this slide in particular. Is that?
I'd be happy to.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
I agree. Everything is available through the State Board of Elections website, the packets, the forms. They've revamped the packet. It used to be quite cumbersome, and now it is easy to read with direct links to all the documents you need for your packets. Some village clerks provide this for their candidates or some units of government, and some don't. So if you are navigating this process as a candidate for the first time, my recommendation is always to find somebody who's done this before, whether it be a professional or somebody you trust. The language is different if you're new to this process. And so people get worried about filling out the forms correctly, and having somebody who's done it before can be an invaluable resource for you. But again, be very familiar with this process. I'd also like to reflect on your earlier slide on educating yourself to the role that you're applying for. Many people take action and decide to get involved because there's a particular issue they're really excited about, which is wonderful. It's kind of the gateway issue that brings you into public service. But it's important to understand all of the issues that board has to decide upon. So doing your homework is extremely important. Understanding what the commitment is extremely important. Some roles are very time consuming and some are less. And so you want to make sure you're setting yourself up to succeed and familiar with all the issues that that board or position is going to address.
Thank you for adding that. I think that perfectly moves us on to the next slide. So about knowing the rules, and in particular the petition seat. And if you go onto the league's website and you look at the open spots, you'll see a lot of them require petitions and local petitions and having a certain percent of the constituent signatures. So as to this petition process, we're hosting a program on October 24th. It's a really great opportunity to gather signatures if you're looking to run. So again, October 4th, there's going to be a program that that would be an opportunity for you to gather signatures. And if you want to follow and keep an eye out for Facebook updates as to this, we'll be sending out more info in days to come. Next slide, please. Okay, awesome. So for following directions carefully, with your petitions, you have to include the statement of candidacy that must indicate the candidate's address, the office being sought. This form also includes a statement affirming that the candidate is qualified for the office being sought. This form must be signed by the candidate and notarized. So these are just basic steps in following and turning in the petition. Secondly, the original statement of economic interest must be filed with the Illinois Secretary of State, which will then issue the receipt of the statement of economic interests for the candidate to file with the Illinois State Board of Elections. 3, the loyalty oath form is optional. If a candidate chooses to sign it, he or she must affirm that he or she is not affiliated directly or indirectly with any organization that seeks to overthrow the government of the United States or the state of Illinois. 4, a petition containing the signatures of the qualified electors. Petition signature sheets must be of uniform size, numbered consecutively, and bound together in book form with one edge secured. The header of each page of the petition should contain the same information. So this is all information that you can find online, and it is very specific, but it does help with some of the logistics in turning in the petitions. Next slide, please. Awesome. After you have filed your papers, you are now a candidate and can begin thinking about your campaign. If any of the panelists want to speak to this in particular, please do so now. It just seems like a good jumping off place if anyone has comments as to this part of the process.
I would like to clarify the slide previous. Sometimes the statement of economic disclosure is filed with the local county, and sometimes it's filed with the state. So depending on which office you're running for, be clear on which entity is the receiver of that document.
And to that, Becky, I would also say the Board of Elections is filled with wonderful people who are always willing to answer questions. So if you're running and you are confused about anything that is being put forward or that you think you need to submit, you can always reach out to them and they will happily help talk you through it. I know I personally have called them several times in the past, just trying to make sure that I understand things and do things right. And I would say, you know, as to this slide, when you're starting to get into strategies and budget and fundraising, fundraising is kind of a big deal when you're running for office, even at the local level. I mean, we're not talking about the same type of dollars that you'll see in like a statewide race or a federal race, but there is money that's there that you will need to buy things like signs or walk cards or buttons and things that you want to do. So you do want to have a sense of what it is you'd like to do and start looking around to price those things out so that you have an idea of how much money you need to raise. And to that, I would say one of the very first things you should do is set up a campaign bank account that is wholly separate from your personal money, so that the second you announce to people that you are running, you will have friends that will say, I want to donate. I want to give you $5. I want to give you $25. You want to have a place for that money to go that is not commingling with your personal funds. And even better, if you can have someone who is your campaign treasurer, your campaign finance person, who can just handle all of that so that you as the candidate don't have to touch that money at all ever. It just makes everything very clean for you as you go through the process and you're reporting. The money doesn't come into the candidate's hand. It goes right into that bank account to pay for campaign needs. And I would also say, from a fundraising perspective, not to be intimidated or to let the money of a campaign or the potential money of a campaign stop you from running. I know when I was talking to people about running, I was very intimidated because they said that for village races in Arlington Heights, you typically needed at least $15,000 to run. And, you know, I've got 2 kids and I want to put them through college one day. And, you know, $15,000 is not a small amount of money to me. And, you know, thinking about how would I raise that? We did do a great job fundraising with my campaign. But we actually won our campaign and spent only about $2,500 because we were really effective and efficient with the way that we ran the campaign. And we didn't follow all of the traditional things that people said we had to do. We looked for things that were going to maximize the dollars that we were spending. We looked for free opportunities for publicity. We looked for a lot of word of mouth. So don't let the money be the thing that keeps you from running for office. You can find the money. You can find ways to run an efficient campaign. So don't let that be the intimidator for you.
You know, also speaking to what Mary Beth said, so the library trustee campaign, I actually spent less than, and I don't know what the cap is before you have to start a committee, but it was definitely less than $1,000. And I actually ran 2 times. The first time I ran, I lost, which, you know, we learned some of the best lessons from when we lose. And after that, I did a lot of networking, which again doesn't require fundraising. And I joined a lot of other groups. I talked to a lot of different organizations inside the village, whether it was Rotary, whether it was, you know, going to different library meetings, a lot of Crime Stoppers, other kind of local organizations that work in the village. But what I found is you have to look at each individual race and see who's running. Sometimes the library trustee, and this is again my experience, just has 3 spots and only 2 people are running. And so then you're not going to need to spend really hardly any money. You want to get information out there, so you might want to print some stuff up. Maybe you get a couple signs, and then sometimes it's a very big field that's running, and then you might want to be more strategic. So I agree with Mary Beth. Don't let the money, rule your decision whether to run or not. Just think creatively and make it work for you.
And if I could just touch briefly on that last slide, on the importance of those 3 that you had up on screen. Once you decide to run for office and you're on the ballot, it is important to just take a minute to sit down and come up with that initial strategy and that budget, because that's really what's going to guide you through the election and through your race. Of course, things come up and you got to be flexible when you're running for office, but you don't want to get too distracted along the process and change course every time, another thing pops up. If you have that strategy and that budget, it's going to guide you through the good times and the more challenging times of the campaign. So it really sets you up for success. And it's a great, chance to, bring some folks in who are going to have your back through the race, and you can throw ideas off of each other and really take a look at what matters most to your community and, what's going to be, the most important thing to get the message to the voters. And I think someone mentioned collateral, so your yard signs and maybe walk pieces to help pass information. And so that's a very important part of this. And then the fundraising, I agree. Don't let that be, an overwhelming factor or prevent you from running for office. You would be surprised once you bring ideas to your neighbors and to your friends and family, the amount of support that is there. You just need to, go and have those conversations, and the fundraising will happen, especially when you have that strategy and that budget. Folks believe in you and they want to see good representation in their community, and you running for office gives them that opportunity. So it's an exciting part of the process, and you have to try to look at it positively, and this is a very important part of the process.
Thank you. If none of the other panelists want to answer, I'm going to move forward. And thank you again to all the panelists who answered, because that is the type of advice that you can only get from someone who's run. So we're going to move on to this next slide, which just briefly, most local elections don't have to worry too much about campaign finance rules, since you do not have to report any campaign contributions until your campaign raises more than $5,000 of donations or expenditures. So that's the figure that you're looking at. This includes—
I was going to say, or spend, or spend.
Yes.
Raises or spend.
Thank you. This includes in-kind donations. Once you have your strategy, as we discussed on the last slide, you can determine your budget and ask for support if needed. And again, more information about this topic is available at www.elections.illinois.gov, which is the website on the slide. Next slide, please. Thank you. This is just a brief segue. The ICDHR is one of our league's partners, and we want to provide all candidates with the platform that the organization has crafted to make our community leadership more diverse and equitable. So as the slide says, the Rainbow Coalition is an affiliate of the Illinois Commission on Diversity and Human Relations, ICDHR, in cooperation with community residents and organizations committed to justice, equality, and the inclusion of African Americans in all taxing organizations. Focus is on working in 7 northwest suburbs to address systemic racism and the historic exclusion of African Americans in governmental organizations of the following villages. So diversity is a really important aspect of local government and something that should be supported as much as possible. So we wanted to recognize our partner. Next slide, please. Here are more references that you can access. These are all really, some of them have been mentioned before, but these are all really important resources when you start your candidacy, and we'll make them available as well. Last slide, please. A huge thank you to Maya for being our moderator, and our ASL interpreter, Patty Shore-Caden, and all of our panelists for giving their time to be here and help us all have a better understanding of how we can make our communities better by running for local office. So thank you guys again. All of these materials will be made available on our website, leagueofwomenvotersah.org. And if now isn't your time to run, consider joining the league. We are open to all genders, gender identities, and ages, and as a 100% volunteer organization with no paid employees, we are dedicated to empowering voters and defending democracy. So again, we would love for you to join our league and to run for local office. Thank you so much. I'm going to pass the mic back to Maya, who will be facilitating our Q&A session. Thanks, everyone.
All right, thank you, Lucy. I'm going to start by giving an open question and assigning it to a particular panelist, but if another panelist feels that they can accurately answer the question too, they can feel free to jump in after. All right, first we can start by asking panelist Garkish, any tips and tricks for collecting signatures?
Yeah, the library, again, depending on what race you're running, library had, at least when I ran, it was under 100 signatures. I think it was 25 or 50. So tips are go in your neighborhood, definitely let people in your neighborhood know, walk around, go to the grocery store, go to different events like the one the league is having later this month. Go to, right now because of COVID, it's a little hard to go to big gatherings, but kind of those one-on-one, that's a great way to get information out about that you're running. You'll see people be pleasantly surprised. You'll get a lot of support. I don't know what the number is, and maybe the other people who've run for office can say this, but I was told, I think, to get at least twice as many as I needed because some get thrown out. I don't know, other people who ran for office, what was your experience there?
Yeah, so I was going to say, the running for village, you're given a maximum number of signatures as well as a floor of signatures, right? And so you should always shoot for the top number, the maximum that you can submit, so that when you're going back through and putting together your petition packet, you know that you think these are a good number of signatures, but you've got wiggle room in case someone tries to come back and challenge you. You don't want to submit just that bare minimum number. I think This year in Arlington Heights, the number is somewhere between a floor of just under 300 and a ceiling of just under 500. Becky would probably know that better than I would, but I think those numbers are pretty close. And I would say also, don't forget about your friends in normal times and in the COVID times, right? You may not be able to be in large gatherings, and people may not be comfortable going door to door. I did a lot of door knocking in petition season, but your friends can take a sheet of your petitions and get 10 signatures, or take a sheet and get 20 signatures, and have their sheets notarized for you, because they may be gathering in small groups with people that are eligible to sign your petitions. Take them up on it. When people say, oh my gosh, you're running, how can I help? Say, can you get me 10 signatures? And give them a petition sheet. My friend circle laughs at me around this time of year because it is petition season, and I don't go anywhere without my clipboard and my sheet for whatever candidates I am getting petitions for. So this year they're not for me, but I walk around with petition sheets for others, and I am unabashedly unafraid to say to anyone I know, hey, I have these petitions. It's not a commitment to vote for this person, but it does help them get on the ballot, which is better for democracy, and they will earn your vote later once they are on the ballot. Take my word for it. Then once they're on the ballot, you can go, you can read about them, you can hear from them, see them speak, let them earn your vote later. But I really could use your help helping democracy. So take your friends up on their offers of help, and frankly, put them to work a little bit. Getting signatures is not that terrible when you kind of farm it out in that way.
I was gonna say as well, don't, utilize your friends and family, like she said, but they do not have to fill out the entire sheet. You can turn in a petition page with just 4 signatures or 1 signature, as long as in their immediate home with their family members. Take them up on it, because those will add up in the long run.
All right, thank you, panelists. Now we have our next question. How often are disputes filed against a candidate's signature packet? Let's have panelist Hume answer this one. And if any other panelist wants to add on later, that's fine.
I wish I had an always answer for that, but there is no always. Some years it seems like people are very interested in contesting packets of people running, and some years there isn't any interest in having that. It really depends on the individuals and what people are either worried about or have an issue with a particular candidate. That being said, electoral boards look to include people, not ways to disqualify people in general. So it's very hard to get somebody removed from the ballot if they have, in good faith, submitted a complete packet. That being said, be sure that your packet is complete, because once you turn it in, you cannot change it. So then again, that goes back to having somebody who's done it before or is very familiar with the process help you. Don't do it alone, and so you don't have to second guess yourself.
All right, thank you. Now, I know that this was already touched on previously on the terms of fundraising. However, if anyone has anything else to add, how much money should one expect to spend? How did they get that money? And is there anything particular financially they need to be aware of? Let's have panelist San Oika answer this one.
Thank you. So one thing that I did is I set up an online portal using not Square, but I used Stripe in order to be able to have individuals use their credit card and send money electronically, which was then linked to a campaign account that I had that Mary Beth had mentioned. And because I didn't really want to be handling checks, I didn't want to be handling cash. I especially didn't want to be handling cash. So that way everything was documented and everything was with a third-party provider, and I also had all of the transfers to the bank as well in those quantities. So everything could be double-checked on who was giving money to the campaign and then who was taking money out and for what. and then just making sure I was really organized with my expenses. It was a local race for me, and even though it was contested, to put it in perspective, we're an award system. So unlike Arlington Heights or other villages where the candidates have to, be voted in at large, I only needed to care about the constituents within my ward. And so the numbers of signatures that I needed was based off of a percentage of who had voted in my ward. So really hyper local. I think there was about 2,300 possible eligible voters. And from that, of the number of people who actually voted in the previous election was, I think, about like 45 people. And so my signature requirement was 5 people to get on the ballot. It was really small. Honestly, I could have just gone to my next door neighbors and had their family sign my petition sheet, and I would have been on the ballot. So when it came to raising money, it was really hyper focused on a very, subset of people. I was able to just go to door 5 times, and that's where I spent most of my money, I think, in like signs. So I'm curious to know how others would answer this question, though.
I was gonna say, I'll jump in. I had to run at large, like you mentioned, and the bulk of my money went to signs. I think we spent, I had about 700 signs. I spent a long time designing them, despite what you might think when you see a purple sign that just says my name and then trustee at the bottom. Please know that actually took like a month's worth of design work going back and forth, because what I learned was the more words you have on a sign, the less effective it is, right? And so I kept getting my signs cut and cut and cut and cut and cut. And finally I said, you've only left me with my name and the word trustee. And everybody went, yeah, nailed it. That's right. And so I ordered 700 at the beginning of campaign season because I was hopeful that I would have a need for 700 signs, and it was the most cost-effective of the purchases, right? I only really thought that I would have the money to order something less than that. So it was kind of a cross your fingers that you will be able to afford all 700 signs by the time you have to pay for all 700 signs, which we were. And then, if you need more for whatever reason, you can always order more. But that was where I spent the bulk of my money. And I did end up using all 700 signs, whether they were at people's houses or they were at, I think we have like 32 polling places. And so I had hundreds of signs that went out the night before Election Day, thanks to volunteers in the area, and including from one of the endorsements that I got. So the endorsement, they don't usually come with money, but this one particular endorsement came with help and volunteers on the night before election night. That was their pledge. So that was really helpful. But yeah, that's where the bulk of my money went, was to yard signs, because we needed a lot. And people still laugh about how many signs I had. So, oh, I remember your name. I saw your sign. I'm like, oh yeah, did you? And then it was a competition about where could they get my signs in the weirdest places. That was the competition between some of my volunteers. So they would reach out to businesses that they knew or places. And so it was always like, where's the funniest spot that you can get her sign, where it would be kind of unexpected. So you could be on the train, on the Metro, and you would see my sign pop up in an apartment window in Des Plaines, because they know that people go on the train every day. And so they would see that sign and remember that name, because it's a lot of name recognition on Election Day.
All right, thank you. Our next question is, how can I encourage my friend to run? I don't think I'd make a good candidate, but my friend would. Could we have panelist Ryan Smith speak on this?
Yeah, I think one of the most important things that you can do to help your friend run for office is just to give your support, your friendship, and your time. It takes a lot to make that decision to actually step up and run for office. And I've never done it, but from my conversations with candidates, it's a big thing to put yourself out there. So having support from your loved ones, from your friends, can make the difference in just the experience of the process. once you have that team around you, it makes sitting down at the campaign table and drafting that plan and that initial budget and thinking, which friends you can call to get involved and to, maybe ask for $5 or 10 to afford the signs and other things that go into running for office. But I would just say your support and your friendship and encouragement, and your honesty too. Like, you need honest friends around you when you run for office. And so, yeah, I think just your support and friendship.
All right, thank you. The next question I'm going to direct to panelist Mason. Is there a benefit to teaming up with another 1 to 2 candidates to run as a slate?
So the benefit, especially in petition time, is you can have multiple names on one petition as long as it's for the same office. So that can help you collect petitions a lot faster, more efficiently, and it's just a teamwork effort at that point. And then along with that, with a lot of offices, people will run as a slate focused on similar issues. And that will help you. You can pool money as you fundraise to buy yard signs together or walk pieces together. So it's a way to really get your name out there more efficiently. The downside to that is if there's a specific issue you want to run on that your slate members might not, then you might want to consider running just as yourself and fundraise as yourself and team up where you're able to, maybe just during the petition process only, and then work yourself during the actual election to get your name out there about that issue.
All right, thank you. I think we maybe have time for a few more questions. What is the best advice you would give a potential candidate? Could we have panelist Canty answer this one?
I tend to give a lot of advice because I like people to run. I very much dislike uncontested elections. I don't think that's better for democracy or for furthering our communities. But one of the things that I try to remind people, and I think it's the best piece of advice that I got, is run to win your office because you want to fulfill that role, right? So don't run for something because people are telling you you would be good at it if it's not a job that you want to do. Campaigning is a lot of work. It's hard on your family. Governing is a lot of work. There's a lot of reading that goes into it. There are a lot of meetings, and you do have to develop a thick skin in depending on the type of race that you're running and the government role that you're looking to fulfill. But make sure it's something that you actually want to do for the next 2, 4, or 6 years, and that you will feel good about doing, even if you are taking criticism, even if you are getting emails from people where they're unhappy with a decision that you had to make for whatever constituency group you're representing. Make sure that you want to do this job and then jump into it and go for it with both feet. And don't be afraid of all the things that are happening around you. The money will come, the support will come, but make sure that you actually want to do this job.
All right, thank you. Are there any other panelists that have a comment to this question?
I would like to speak on that. So this is Alderman Sonoyka. I would say that if you are someone who's running for office and you're running for a board or a city council, and you notice that you do not look or act or talk like the board, I think it's really important to not be discouraged by that. And in fact, you are bringing a very unique perspective to that governing body and that policymaking body that didn't exist beforehand. So I have definitely had some very inappropriate comments during my campaign and after my campaign because I was really like less than half the ages of most of the individuals that are on the board. And honestly, those individuals, it's a problem if everyone is the same, because our communities are really diverse, especially in the northwest suburbs. So I would say whatever it is that's making you unique or different from those that currently exist, that's going to be your strength, and others are going to note that. So I would say don't try and hide that, don't try and blend in with who's there now, but to instead really make that the foreground of your campaign, because that's what's going to help you ultimately with your votes, and it's going to help you govern better and help your city and your village govern better as well.
If I
All
could,
right. Oh, sorry.
oh no, I'm sorry. I just wanted to say too as well that if you can take anything away from this, or if you're encouraging anyone to run, it's to encourage people that they are qualified for these positions. Too many people say they are not qualified to run, and the only requirement is that you live within the boundaries and you really care about your community. And so we want different people to run. We want different experiences. You don't need to have served in a previous capacity, otherwise nobody would be qualified. So please know that you're qualified and encourage people that they are able to do these positions.
All right, thank you. And now here's our final question. Is social media or a website essential to a local campaign? And we can ask panelist Ryan Smith this one.
Yes. Getting your message out there to voters is the most important thing that you can do when you're running for office. That takes form in many different channels, whether it's door knocking in normal times and, finding a way to reach voters during these difficult times during COVID. But social media offers a very easy and accessible place to get your message out there. However, it is a very important thing that you take responsibility, that you are proud of everything that you put on your social media, that you think thoughtfully, and you take the time to make sure that you're saying what you want to say, because everything in writing is there forever. So while yes, it is extremely important to have social media and to have a website where there's easy, accessible information for your voters, I just, please use it responsibly and, make sure that you're saying what you want to say on there. But yeah, I think it's a great way to get your message out there, and it's a great way to talk to young people too and get them involved in your campaign. I know social media, all ages are on there, but it's a great way to reach people easily and in ways that, they're there. So talk to them while they're on those platforms.
All right, thank you, panelist Ryan Smith. Now I'm going to pass it back to Lucy.
Thank you. Because we have a couple more minutes left, we're going to return to some of the open seats on local government that you might be interested in running for. So Mrs. Graham, if you wouldn't mind sharing the presentation one more time, and we're going to go to slide 3, I think. Awesome, thank you. So here are the seats on the local school board. Obviously, there are quite a few and in a lot of different school boards. So if you know a student or you have a student in any of these school boards, it might be an excellent place for you to take an interest in local government. So we have 4 seats for District 25, 4 seats for District 214, 3 for District 21, 4 for 57, 4 for Prospect Heights School District, 2 for District 59, and 5 for District 512. So,
and Lucy, can I just jump in really quick, because this has come up before in talking to potential candidates. You do not have to have a child in the school district in order to run for the school board. And, we talk a lot about diversity of opinions and experiences. And I think it's actually important on a school board that not everyone have a child that is going through that system, because you kind of lose perspective as a parent, right? And you only think about what is best for your kids, and you forget that everyone in your community is helping to support these schools, and they may have different, thoughts on what should be done. So I do think it's important, if you're passionate about education, to be involved in the school board, not just because you have a child going through there. Going back to, you are qualified to run, you're qualified to run for school board, even if you don't have kids in that school district.
Yes, I completely agree. That's an excellent point. And the slide that we're on is for village and cities. So these are also some open seats. All right. So we have for Arlington Heights, we have 4 seats and the president's seat. We have 3 seats for Buffalo Grove. For Elk Grove, we have a mayor and 3 seats. For Mount Prospect, it is the same. For Rolling Meadows, we have wards 2, 4, and 6 as open seats. And for Wheeling, we have village clerk, president, and 3 other seats. So these are all other options that you could run for. And here again are the restrictions or limitations or requirements would be the best word for that. And things that you just need to keep in mind if you're interested in any of these. We'll move on to the next slide. Okay, park and library boards. So park district and the library. For Arlington Heights, we have 2 seats of 6 years. For the park district, there are 3 seats open. For the Buffalo
Lucy?
Grove, yes?
Just one correction. The library board, just so you know, this just happened, but someone retired early. So it's actually 2 seats for 6 years, and then there'll be 1 seat for 2 years to finish out the term. And I think that's important because sometimes 6 years scares people. So if you're interested, I encourage people to run for 2 years. Give it a try.
That's awesome information. Thank you so much. So that's another opportunity. For Buffalo Grove Park District, there are 2 seats. For the Elk Grove Library, there are 2. Mount Prospect Library has 3. Mount Prospect Park District has 3. And Prospect Heights Park District has 3, as well as Wheeling Park District has 4. So we are at 10 o'clock. So we're going to go through the rest of the slides. I'm not going to read out the lists, but we can take a look at what those are. So now we're looking at townships, which I think is the last one. And again, all of this information is available on our local leagues website. So if you have more questions or you want to refer back to this, that's all available. And this presentation is being recorded and is also live on Facebook. So we will have a link if you want to watch part of it again or send it to somebody you know. Those are all open for you. And remember that making the decision to run is a personal decision out of passion, where you decide on positions. And I just want to say that I'm really excited that I was able to be here today. And I really hope that this inspires people to run for local government, be involved in local government, and help make the futures of everyone who lives in our local suburbs much better. So thank you so much to everyone. If Mrs. Graham wants to make a final remark, I'll pass it back to her. But otherwise, thank you everyone for the great presentation today.